For centuries, we've been handed a map for a fulfilling life. The coordinates are clear. Find your other half, secure the bond, build the shared life. The destination is presented as the end of loneliness, the answer to incompleteness. But what if the map is wrong? What if, by following it devoutly, you are not navigating toward wholeness, but away from it? What if the deepest form of love affair you will ever have requires no one else's presence in the room? This isn't a manifesto against connection. It is a deep inquiry into the nature of fulfillment itself. We have been conditioned to see the single state as a waiting room, a transitional phase of lack, a problem to be solved by coupling. But through the lens of depth psychology, pioneered by thinkers like Carl Jung, a radically different picture emerges. Solitude, chosen consciously, is not a void to be filled. It is the sacred workshop where the self is forged. The aching need for a partner, the societal panic around being alone, Jung would urge us to see these not as natural truths, but as symptoms of a corrective flight from the inner world. We are taught to seek completion in another's eyes because we are terrified of what we might find in our own reflection. The relationship becomes a brilliant distraction, a beautifully decorated room where we can hide from the basement of our own psyche. We call it love, we call it partnership, but often it is a covert pact of mutual avoidance. You don't have to look at your darkness if you focus on mine, and I won't have to face my emptiness if I can lose myself in caring for yours. Let's be brutally honest. How many of your past relationships began not from a place of overflowing abundance, but from a quiet, gnawing sense of lack? The fear of Friday nights with no plans, the dread of family gatherings where you're the only one without a plus one, the unconscious belief that your value is a joint venture requiring a cosigner. Society doesn't just encourage this, it enforces it. From fairy tales to tax benefits, the architecture of our world is built for pairs. To step outside of it is to be seen as aberrant, a puzzle piece that refuses to fit. You are labeled selfish, afraid of commitment, or tragically broken. But what if the exact opposite is true? What if the willingness to be alone is the highest form of commitment, not to another, but to the most important project you will ever undertake, the realization of your own unique being? Jung called this individuation. It is the lifelong journey of integrating the conscious and unconscious parts of yourself, of becoming not a generic human, but the specific, unrepeatable individual you were meant to be. And this journey has one non-negotiable: periods of deep, uninterrupted solitude. Why? Because you cannot hear the whispers of your own soul over the constant noise of compromise. Think of the last time you were in a relationship. Recall the micro-negotiations, the movie you pretended to want to see, the hobby you let fade because it took time away from us, the opinion you softened, the passion you downplayed, the edge of your personality you sanded down because it was too much or sparked conflict. We frame these as acts of love, of sacrifice, and sometimes they are, but more often they are acts of self-erasure. Each one is a tiny betrayal. You call it maturity. Jung might call it a slow death of potential. The psyche has its own gravity. In a couple, there is a constant, invisible pull toward a center, a shared identity, a we. This gravity is comforting. It gives shape and definition, but it also pulls elements of your individual psyche out of their own orbits and into this collective mass. Your fiery ambition, your peculiar creativity, your inconvenient truths, they get sucked into the service of the union. They become assets or liabilities to be managed, not wild forces to be explored. This is where the modern ideal of romantic love becomes psychologically perilous. It sells fusion as the ultimate goal, two become one. But Jung warned that when two unconscious individuals become one, the result is not wholeness, but a shared prison. It is a conflation of intimacy with enmeshment. You lean on each other not from strength, but from the inability to stand alone. You use the other as a crutch for a leg you've never tried to walk on, and in doing so, you both remain permanently disabled. True love, in the Jungian sense, is only possible between two individuals who have first established their own sovereignty. It is the coming together of whole worlds, not the desperate collision of two halves searching for completion. You cannot build a masterpiece from broken pieces yearning to be glued. So, what happens in the alchemical chamber of chosen solitude? First, the distractions fall away, the texts stop, the shared calendar empties, the need to perform or accommodate vanishes. You are left with yourself. And initially, this is terrifying. The mind, unused to the silence, will scream. It will replay past conversations, invent futures of eternal loneliness, and conjure every insecurity you've ever possessed. This is not solitude yet. This is withdrawal. It's the detox phase from the drug of external validation. If you can sit through this, if you can resist the urge to numb the discomfort with another person, with frantic activity, with another scroll through a dating app, something shifts. The noise subsides, and in the quiet, a different kind of voice begins to speak. This is the voice of the self with a capital S, Jung's term for the total, integrated personality, the guiding center of the psyche. It doesn't speak in words of panic or lack. It speaks in whispers of intuition, in flashes of image, in the pull of genuine interest. It is the part of you that knows what you need to become. This is where the real work begins. Solitude provides the space for what Jung called making the darkness conscious. We all carry a shadow, the parts of ourselves we deem unacceptable, weak, shameful, or too powerful. In relationships, we often unconsciously project these onto our partner. We rage at their laziness, which might be our own disowned productivity. We are enamored by their wild confidence, which might be our own repressed vitality. How can you integrate what you refuse to even acknowledge as yours? Alone, with no one to blame or idealize, you are forced to turn the lens inward. That critical voice you always thought was yours, you begin to trace its origin. That pattern of attracting emotionally unavailable partners, you start to see its roots in your own early dynamics. This is not self-flagellation, it is archaeology. You are digging down to the foundations of your own personality. It is messy, painful, and profoundly liberating. You stop being a puppet of unconscious patterns and start to become the author of your own story. Furthermore, solitude is the incubator of genuine creativity and purpose. Great art, profound philosophy, groundbreaking science, they are not born in committee meetings or in the interstitial moments between couples therapy and grocery shopping. They are born in extended periods of deep, uninterrupted concentration. They require a mind that can follow a thought to its farthest, most absurd conclusion without worrying if that thought is relationship approved. Think of the archetypal creator, the visionary, the philosopher. Their most enduring contributions often came from periods of intense isolation, not because they hated people, but because the work demanded it. The creative process is a sacred contract between the individual and the unknown. It is the willingness to venture into mental territory that is formless, chaotic, and frightening. You cannot do this with one foot in the consensus reality of a shared domestic life. The muse is shy. She flees from the sound of negotiated compromises. A tethered mind cannot explore uncharted oceans. So this brings us to a crucial distinction, the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the pain of feeling disconnected. It is a feeling of lack, of absence. Solitude, especially the kind we are discussing, is an active, engaged state of being with yourself. Loneliness says, I am empty because no one is here. Solitude says, I am full because I am here and I am enough. One is a poverty of connection. The other is a richness of consciousness. Society conflates the two to keep us in line. It tells us that the ache of loneliness is proof we need to find someone. It rarely suggests that the ache might be a call to go deeper into the self, not out of it. That the emptiness isn't a hole to be plugged by another person, but a space to be filled with your own awakening awareness. Now, let's address the inevitable question. Is this a call for universal, permanent celibacy? Absolutely not. That would be just another dogma, another prison. The goal is not to worship solitude as an ideology, but to reclaim it as a capability. It is about developing the psychological muscle to be alone, so that your togetherness is a choice, not a compulsion. When you enter a relationship from a place of inner fullness, everything changes. You no longer need the other person, you choose them. And because you don't need them to complete you, you are free to love them for who they truly are, not for the role you need them to play in your psychic drama. You can disagree without fear of abandonment. You can pursue your passions without guilt. You can allow them their own solitude without insecurity. The relationship becomes a fertile ground where two whole beings can grow, not a life raft where two half beings cling to survive. This is the love Jung pointed toward. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Notice, both are transformed, neither is consumed. But this path of choosing yourself first, of cultivating voluntary solitude, comes with a steep price. You will be misunderstood. You will lose relationships, not just romantic ones, but friendships that were based on your old compliant self. You will watch peers move through the milestones, engagements, weddings, homes filled with shared laughter, and you will feel the pull of the old map. The fear will return. Am I wrong? Am I broken? Am I being left behind? This is the hero's journey of the modern psyche, to leave the village of collective expectations and walk into the forest of the unknown self. The village will call you a fool. It will label your courage as pathology. It will whisper that you are doomed to a cold and barren life. You must be prepared for this. Your conviction must be built not on rebellion, but on an inner knowing so solid that external opinions become like weather. They pass over you, but they cannot erode your foundation. You will also face the internal cost. You will have to grieve the comforting fantasy of being saved. You will have to take full, radical responsibility for your own emotional state, your own fulfillment, your own life's meaning. There is no one to blame, no partner to criticize for holding you back. The mirror becomes merciless and also, eventually, your most truthful friend. Is it worth it? Only you can answer that. But consider the alternative, a life of quiet accommodation, a soul that slowly bends to fit a shape it was never meant to inhabit, the death of potential by 1,000 tiny concessions, the terrifying question that might arise in a final quiet moment at the end of it all. Who was I, and did I ever give myself a chance to find out? This is the radical invitation of depth psychology. It asks you to turn away, temporarily, from the frantic search for the right person and to begin the epic, terrifying, and magnificent search for the person you already are, buried beneath layers of conditioning and fear. The partner you crave is not out there. The wholeness you seek is not in another's embrace. It is waiting for you in the silent, sacred space of your own undivided attention. If this perspective resonates with you, if it stirs a recognition that feels less like a new idea and more like a remembering of something you've always sensed, then you are already on the path. The journey inward is the most important one you will ever take. It requires guides, tools, and a community of fellow travelers. If you want to go deeper, to understand the maps left by Jung and others, to build the emotional and intellectual structure for a life of authentic freedom, then this channel is for you. We are winds of thought, and we explore the depths of the human psyche to find the blueprints for a more conscious, authentic life. Your journey of self-discovery is the greatest story you will ever live. Help us build a community around this exploration. If this video added value to your path, please like this video. It tells the algorithm that these deeper conversations matter. And subscribe to Winds of Thought and hit the notification bell. We are just getting started, and the next video will delve into the practical tools for beginning your own inner work, how to actually start that conversation with yourself when the silence feels too loud. The first and most profound relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. Make it a masterpiece.